So next we'll move on to finding inverses of radical functions. So f of x is equal to the square root of x minus 2. First question we'll ask ourselves is f of x 1 to 1? Well, thinking back to what the square root function looks like, you may remember from our first unit when we took a look at families of functions that this is a picture of what the square root function looks like. The domain of the square root function is all numbers greater than or equal to 0 because over the real numbers you can't take the square root of a negative number. And so we can see from the graph that yes, this is a 1-to-1 function, and the graph of f of x, the square root of x minus 2, would simply take that graph of the square root function and shift it to the right 2 units. So yes, it'll still be 1-to-1. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the inverse, same way we always have. We'll go into y notation. We'll interchange x and y. And then we'll solve for y. So the opposite of square rooting is squaring. So we'll have x squared is equal to y minus 2. And we'll add 2 to both sides. So x squared plus 2 is equal to y. In other words, x squared plus 2 is equal to the inverse of f. Let's find the inverse of a rational function. Now, of all the ones we've done, these take just a little bit more work. They're not difficult, but they just take a little more work. And we can see that this rational function is 1-to-1, so we don't need to restrict the domain. We'll go into y notation. We'll interchange x and y. So where we see y, we're going to replace it with x. And where we see x, we're going to replace it with y. So this is how that will start. Okay, so the next thing we would like to do is we would like to multiply to get rid of the fraction. So we'll take both sides of this equation and we'll multiply it by y minus 2. On the left side of the equation, as we distribute, we're going to get xy minus 2x is equal to, and then over here, we'll simply have y plus 3. Now what we would like to do is we would like to get all terms that involve y on the same side of the equation, and you'll see why we do that in just a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract y from both sides to move the y to the left, and then I'm going to add 2x to both sides to move the 2x term to the right. So if we do that, then we're going to have xy minus y, all the y's on the left, adding 2x to each side, 2x plus 3, everything that doesn't have a y is on the right. Now the reason we do that, some of you might see already why we're probably going to do that, but see how both these terms have a y? That means we can factor the common factor. And remember, what do we need to do? We need to solve for y. So finishing touch would be just to divide both sides by x minus 1. These would cancel. And so we have y, or in other words, f inverse of x, is equal to 2x plus 3 over x minus 1. Okay, so that was the inverse of a radical function and a rational function. So here's a radical one for you to try. Now, if you're wondering how we got the answer that was in the quiz, let's just work this one out together for practice. Y is equal to the square root of x plus 2 minus 3. We're going to interchange x and y. And now we're going to solve for y. So we'll add 3 to each side. We'll square. So x plus 3 squared is equal to y plus 2. And then we'll subtract 2 from each side. So x plus 3 squared minus 2 is the inverse function of f.